Hiya, boys and girls. This is Mr. X. And you have to forgive me, but I'm a little bit loopy. Worked overnight, then discovered I didn't have to work my day job, so I said screw it and went to see the movie that everybody's talking about. My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2. And boy, let me tell you, it's fatter and Greekier than you'd ever expect. 2 baklavas up. But no, I'm kidding, of course. I went to go see BVS DOJ, or as I like to call it, Man of Steel 2 Electric Boogaloo. And let's just get a few things out of the way right now. I was not the biggest fan of Man of Steel, but it's not a movie I hate. Because as an old school comic book fan, anytime I see a reinterpretation of a character like that, I instantly think to myself, oh, it's an Elseworlds. Now, if you don't know what an Elseworlds is, Elseworlds were all those little offshoot stories that DC used to do that allowed them to tell their stories in different ways, like Batman during the time of Jack the Ripper, or what if Kal-El had crashed in Russia instead of Kansas, blah blah blah. Fun fact, technically, The Killing Joke was supposed to be considered an Elseworlds tale until it became so respected and frankly overhyped to the point of where they just said fuck it, it's canon. So Cliff Notes version, I think there's an effective film in there somewhere, but you'd need a damn good editor and some fucking restraint to find it. Where to begin? So let's start off with some of the things that I did like about the film. First and foremost, and this came as no surprise to me, but Affleck is perfectly fine as Batman and Bruce Wayne. I remember cracking quite a few jokes when everybody was all up in arms about that, because I had to remind them that there was a bit of a fan uproar when a certain Michael Keaton was cast for the 1989 Batman, and we see how that turned out. Secondly, Hans Zimmer at times shows a little more restraint than he's known for. Unfortunately, you may notice I said sometimes, because near the end, oh my god, his predilection for over the top goes so over the top that literally it became the musical equivalent of Post Scent of a Woman Al Pacino at times. For the most part, I have to say it looks like Snyder calmed down his shaky cam. It still pops up from now and then, but it's nowhere near as noticeably as intrusive as it was in Man of Steel. And maybe I wasn't paying as close attention to this as I normally would be, because I was just trying to watch it as a movie. But it didn't feel like it had that desaturated color palette to the extreme that the first film had. Also, most of the performances, barring one in particular, were more than serviceable, and hey, that Gal Gadot, she good to go, if you get my drift. Wow. And, for the most part, that might be it for the broad strokes about what I did like about the movie. So now let's get to the part everybody really wants to hear. First and foremost, oh my god, I cannot stand Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor, or the way the movie portrays the character in general. You know, I gotta crack open a beer for this shit. If you wanted the Joker in the goddamn movie, cast him in the Joker as opposed to putting him in fucking Suicide Squad. All his nervous tics, all his I know what they were trying to do, or at least I get the feeling they were trying to create, like, imagine if you mesh the tech startup guys from the past 10 years and turn them into Lex Luthor. Yeah, but that character, it doesn't work for that character at all. If you're even a remote fan of Gene Hackman's portrayal of the character, which was more comedic than I prefer, frankly, my personal taste has always gone toward Clancy Brown's interpretation of the character from the animated series, because I think he's beyond exceptional and perfectly conveys the menace that character should have. I did not feel a hint of menace from Eisenberg's portrayal for a millisecond. He is a joke in this movie. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. And I can tell he tried to do some method stuff with where you can tell that he was trying to convey that there's some demons behind those eyes and the quirky behavior, but it just didn't work. And I can't put my finger down if it's a combination. Maybe it's a combination of story, performance, and direction. But whatever created the mix, that shit came out wrong. You know when you decide to create something in the kitchen and you start getting all fancy with it and start trying new things and you like, I'm gonna put a pinch of this and a dash of that. And then when you finally eat that shit, you like, damn, I should have stuck with the original recipe because this sucks. That is Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor. Secondly, and I hope this doesn't sound as damning as it could, but there's really no other way for me to put it, but I was kind of getting Star Wars prequel flashbacks from the structure and the way this movie plays out. First and foremost, there does not seem to really be a protagonist in this film. It sure as hell ain't Superman. He's almost a guest star in this flick. It's really not even Bruce Wayne or Batman. The issue is, it's almost like they were trying to make an ensemble piece, but it just doesn't quite gel. The story just lurches from this to that to this, to points where you almost forget certain characters were still even in it until they pop back up. And then of course there's their need to shoehorn in the characters from the first film, whether their presence really was necessary or not. Yeah, I'm looking at that guy from The Matrix who plays the general or whatever he is, senator. I didn't pay attention to a black guy. And sadly, Perry White. He pops up to say a few things and then he's gone. And then they go at the end, oh yeah, remember Perry's still in this, so let's have him look at the big headline. Also, just heads up, I can't really even say this is going to be massive spoilers, because anyone who knows Doomsday is in this movie and is familiar with why Doomsday was created in the comics in the first place should have a 99% idea of how this movie is going to play out at the end. And by the way, if you recall that scene in Man of Steel that takes place in the church and felt, the religious symbolism's getting a little thick here. Well, you ain't seen nothing yet, Jack. Superman is Jesus, and these are his trials. There's a weird religious undercurrent going throughout this flick that was really noticeable to someone like me. I don't know if the mainstream audience is gonna really pick up on it as overtly as I did, but it's really prominently there. And I'm sorry, but to me it just got the stink of David Goyer all over it, trying to make this sound deeper than what it is. Because, he goes, comic books are for, virgin fags. It felt unnecessary and at times almost, and I use this word very rarely, inappropriate. We wanted to see Batman and Superman kicking each other's ass and then teaming up to fight something else. And you do get that in this movie. But oh boy, do they make you work for it. And there's this whole subplot about how the government doesn't trust Superman. And anyone who's seen the animated series knows, if you're going to do the Candace plotline, you got to do it right. You got to do that with the whole Justice League. You can't just center it on Superman. Because if you're basing it in our reality, where Superman just happens to exist, then all the humans saying, we need to police Superman, or Superman can't do whatever he wants. No one man should have this much power. Well, how the fuck you gonna stop him? That's a minor thread in this flick, and it's pretty much the only reason Lex is there. But I didn't buy it. I really just didn't buy it. To me, it felt more like a plot point that just justifies keeping Bruce Wayne in the story. Now, as far as the radical changes between the interpretations of the characters in this versus how they're usually portrayed in other media or in the original comic books, like I said, you'll save yourself a lot of trouble if you just consider this an Elseworld story. Because I can already hear the people bitching about Jeremy Irons' portrayal of Alfred, because he kind of made him, working class English as opposed to, upper crust like we're used to with a Michael Gow or a Michael Caine. And I'm sure I can hear the fanboy rage from across the internet about the fact that this Batman drinks. And of course, after we've gotten so used to how Marvel has almost seamlessly integrated their universe, seeing the way they kind of try to tease about the upcoming Justice League movie by introducing glimpses of some of those characters, I found I found it very underwhelming. And it doesn't help that one of those characters is the Flash. I have not seen the show. Sorry, motherfuckers. I got 2 jobs and time is precious. But I've heard nothing but good things. So, Warner Brothers might have shot themselves in the foot by saying, nope, our Flash is going to be different than the one that's on the TV show. But for the most part, I consider these things minor details because, again, when you're talking about radical reinterpretation of a character, Eisenberg as the main villain of the piece kind of ruins the whole package. We really needed an intimidating human villain to make the human aspects that they're trying to present in the story work better. By having him play the leader of Twitter decides to become an evil madman, it just deflates all the other notes they were trying to hit about how scared humanity would become with a literal living god amongst them. But enough about that stuff. Now it's just time for a few more minor quibbles, because I'm not trying to create something that's longer than the movie itself. I found the cinematography for the most part functional. I'll never understand how someone who rose to prominence based on his visual stylings like Snyder has decided to really kind of tone that down for his superhero flicks. The non-action sequences are shot rather perfunctory, in my opinion, and kind of don't have that pizzazz that helps elevate the non-action moments in films like these. I would say that Christopher Nolan was more of a hands-off producer and let Snyder do his own thing, but at this point I think he's so hands-off that all he's doing is cashing the checks. The CGI, when effective, works very well. It's overused, but I mean, that's the same as saying water is wet today, so there's really no point in bitching about it. I will say that it's made Snyder come up with this weird little action tick that I've noticed where I call it dolly with action, where he'll start on action sequence and something will get tossed or hit or move, and then the camera moves with it in that unnatural way that only CGI can do, that I've seen pop up quite a bit in both films. Now, again, I know this is the sort of stuff that you usually only notice if you're studying a film and not just watching it for enjoyment purposes, but when overused that much, I think even the mainstream audience will pick it up. I mean, there's a reason why everybody calls the speed up, slow down the Snyder effect. Even the mainstream picked up on it because it was overused. Again, like I said earlier, Zimmer's music at times was effective, particularly with Batman, and I had to give him props for that because I know he was itching to just go back to his stuff from the Nolan flicks, but he didn't. But in the finale, oh boy, if you're diabetic, you might go into a frickin' sugar-based coma. And you remember when I said at the beginning of this about how I think there is an effective movie in there? Well, I do think it's there. But this thing is so full of bloat, you would think that the studio was being charged if they didn't use all the film they shot. On Live Nude Geeks and Geek Juice Radio, we often discuss how, in the hands of a gifted editor, something average can be turned good, and something good can be turned great. I easily see 30 to 40 minutes of this that could be left on the cutting room floor, and it would only improve the film. But for some strange reason, I think these A-list directors feel that if they shot it, you need to see it. except for certain selected deleted scenes, so we have a selling point for the post-theatrical market. But in my opinion, the story, remember that, should drive the decisions of the editorial process and not the other way around. So if the story can be helped by trimming the fat, then you trim the goddamn fat. But that's not the case in this flick, and I'm here to tell you, you feel it's 151-minute running time. So in closing, did I hate this film? Nah, not at all. Did I like this film? In spots. But the feeling that more comes to mind is indifference. Does this film deserve all the vitriol it's getting online from certain overweight film critics and other people, and fanboy rage going, oh my god, this is terrible, this is a disgrace, this is blah 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 blah, and this film raped my childhood? No, it doesn't. Because no film or any media has ever raped your childhood. That was your overtouchy uncle. And keep that motherfucker away from your kids. At the end of the day, it's just one part of a media universe. If you didn't like this, and if you don't like these interpretations, guess what? The comic books are still there. The animated series, still there. The original films, still there. So you know what? Take or leave this one. It's gonna make its money. It has to. I think it's cost the gross national product of several smaller nations. And if I can leave you with at least one positive note, let it be this. We now have Affleck as Batman. And at least as of now, he is slated to direct the solo Batman flick. And we know he knows how to direct. Not only that, he also has a much better handle on storytelling and structure than Senior Snyder. So, if nothing else, this might lead us to another awesome Batman movie. And that's good enough for me. On that note, I'm Mr. X, and I'll catch you next time I decide to just talk about something I just saw. Peace out.
Geek Juice.